Right now, your alarm is set for tomorrow morning. Maybe 6, maybe 6:30, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you already know you're not going to get enough sleep again. You'll push through it with coffee. You'll feel vaguely terrible by 2 p.m. You'll tell yourself you'll go to bed earlier tonight. You won't. And here's the thing nobody tells you. This pattern, the exhaustion, the guilt, the grinding through it, is not a personal failure. It's not laziness. It's not weak willpower or poor time management. It is the result of a society that took the most fundamental biological rhythm in human history and systematically dismantled it over about 150 years. And almost nobody noticed it happening. Let's start with a number. 300,000 years. That's how long anatomically modern humans have existed on this planet. For roughly 299,850 of those years, no human being on Earth worked a 9 to 5. No human being set an alarm. No human being ran on 4 hours of sleep because a deadline moved or a manager sent an email at 11 p.m. The workday was governed entirely by one thing: light. When the sun rose, you worked. When the sun set, you stopped. Not because people were passive or unambitious, because in near total darkness, surrounded by predators that could see perfectly well in the night, moving around after dark was how you died. Night was not wasted time. Night had its own rhythm, its own structure, its own biological purpose. And we erased it completely. And then we told everyone they needed to be more productive. Here's where the science gets uncomfortable. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr at the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment that most people have never heard of, but that quietly rewrote what scientists believed about the human sleep cycle. He took a group of healthy adult volunteers and removed all artificial light from their lives. No lamps, no screens, no street lights bleeding through curtains. 14 hours of natural darkness every night. The same conditions every human being lived under before electricity, before gas lamps, before even the widespread availability of cheap candles. Within 3 to 4 weeks, without instruction, without suggestion, every single participant settled into the same sleep pattern. 4 hours of sleep, then a quiet, calm waking period of 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night, then 4 more hours of sleep until dawn. 2 phases, not one continuous block. Nobody told them to do this. Nobody described it to them beforehand. Their bodies simply reverted to it, as if some ancient program had been running underneath the surface the whole time, waiting for the right conditions to turn back on. But here's the part that stopped Wehr completely. During that middle window, that 1 to 2 hours of quiet wakefulness in total darkness, he measured their hormone levels and found something he didn't expect. Their brains were producing elevated levels of prolactin, significantly elevated. The same hormone released during deep meditation. The same neurological state associated with the hours after intimacy. A calm, reflective, almost altered state of consciousness. Participants described it in remarkably consistent terms. Peaceful, unhurried, deeply still, unlike any waking state they experienced during the day. This wasn't a side effect of the experiment. This wasn't insomnia with a silver lining. This was the feature. This was what the human brain was designed to do with darkness. For 300,000 years, every single human being on Earth had access to this state every single night of their lives. Not because they practiced mindfulness, not because they had better discipline, because the night was dark, and their biology knew exactly what to do with it. Then we lit everything up, and it vanished, and we replaced it with scrolling. Now, here's where the United States enters the picture specifically. And the numbers here are not subtle. The CDC has formally classified insufficient sleep as a public health epidemic in America. Not a concern, not a trend worth monitoring, an epidemic. Roughly 1 in 3 American adults regularly gets less than the recommended 7 hours of sleep per night. That's over 80 million people walking around in a state of chronic partial sleep deprivation. But the sleep problem doesn't exist in isolation. It is inseparable from something else entirely. Americans work more hours per year than the citizens of almost every other developed nation on the planet. More than the United Kingdom, more than France, Germany, the Netherlands, Denmark, Australia, Canada, and Japan. The average American worker logs approximately 1,800 hours per year. The average German worker logs about 1,350. That difference, 450 hours, is 11 full 40-hour work weeks. Every year. Gone. And Americans do this while using less vacation time, taking fewer protected breaks, and operating inside the only wealthy nation on Earth that provides 0 federally mandated paid vacation days. 0. Not 2 weeks, not 1 week. 0. Every other developed economy on the planet guarantees its workers paid rest by law. The United States leaves it entirely to employer discretion. And even when American workers do receive paid time off, studies consistently show that roughly 55% of them don't use all of it. Because the culture tells them not to. Because leaving early is a signal. Because taking a full lunch break is something you have to justify. Because being seen at your desk late is still, in many American workplaces, treated as evidence of commitment. Productivity, hustle, the grind. These are not neutral words. They are a value system, a deeply American value system. And that value system has a specific, traceable history. In the early 1800s, before industrialization fully took hold, most Americans worked in agriculture. The rhythm of daily life was still partially tied to natural light. Work expanded and contracted with the seasons. Rest was not a reward you earned. It was structurally embedded in the calendar. Then came the factories. Factory owners needed bodies present for fixed hours, regardless of season, regardless of weather, regardless of what any human body might biologically prefer. The 12-hour workday became standard practice. 6 days a week. For adults, for teenagers, for children as young as 10 years old. Workers fought back, violently at times. The American labor movement of the late 1800s and early 1900s was, at its core, a biological argument dressed in the language of rights. The human body cannot sustain this. We are breaking down. We need rest, not because we are weak, but because we are human. In 1914, Henry Ford made a decision that genuinely shocked other industrialists. He unilaterally cut his factory workers to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Not out of compassion, not out of progressive politics, out of data. His own internal productivity analysis showed clearly that workers beyond the 8-hour mark made more errors, moved slower, damaged more equipment, and ultimately cost more per unit of output than workers who went home on time. The 8-hour workday was not a gift to workers. It was an efficiency calculation, a business decision. The humanity was incidental. But here's the critical thing that happened next. That 8-hour calculation was built entirely around manual factory labor, physical tasks, measurable output per hour. When the American economy shifted from factories to offices, from physical to cognitive, From assembly lines to spreadsheets and strategy and screens, the 8-hour assumption followed without anyone pausing to check whether it still made biological sense. It didn't. And decades of research now confirm exactly that. The human brain is not a machine that runs at constant output until it's switched off. It is an organ with finite metabolic resources that deplete in real time.
Focused cognitive work, the kind that requires judgment, creativity, complex problem solving, begins degrading measurably after 4 to 6 hours. Not because the person isn't trying, because the organ cannot maintain that state indefinitely. A study published in 2021 found something particularly striking. After sustained periods of cognitively demanding work, the brain accumulates elevated levels of glutamate in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for complex decision-making, impulse control, long-term planning, and abstract thought. When glutamate builds up past a certain threshold, the brain actively steers behavior away from demanding tasks. It's not weakness. It's not distraction. It is the brain protecting itself from metabolic overload. What does the average American worker do at that point? They push through. They get another coffee. They stay an extra hour to compensate for the hour they spent staring at the screen, not actually producing anything. And then they commute home, already depleted, eat something fast, open their laptop again, and finally close it at 11 p.m. and lie in bed unable to sleep because their nervous system never received a signal that the day was over. And then the phone comes out. And this is where it gets precise. The screen in your hand is not just a distraction. It is a biological intervention. The light emitted by smartphones, tablets, and laptops contains a heavy concentration of short-wavelength blue light. Your retina contains a specialized class of cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells evolved to detect the specific blue wavelengths present in morning sunlight, the signal that tells your brain to wake up, suppress melatonin, and prepare for an active day. When those cells detect blue light at 10, 11, midnight, they send the same signal. Your brain does not know the difference between a sunrise and a screen. It responds identically. Melatonin production drops, cortisol edges up. Core body temperature stays elevated instead of dropping, which is a prerequisite for deep sleep. You are lying in a dark room, physically exhausted, while a device in your hand tells your nervous system it is 7 a.m. This is not a character flaw. This is a biological system responding exactly as it was designed to inputs it was never designed to encounter. Here is the full picture of what actually happened. For the overwhelming majority of human history, work was bounded by light. Sleep arrived in 2 natural phases, with a built-in window of calm recovery in between. Darkness enforced rest the way no alarm or app or productivity system ever could. The human body had a rhythm, and that rhythm worked. Then, in roughly 150 years, a blink in evolutionary time, we removed the darkness, detached the workday from biological reality, built a national identity around relentless output, and handed every person a glowing device that chemically overrides the sleep signals their brain has been sending for 300,000 years. And then we told them to wake up earlier. Look at the countries that consistently outperform the United States on measures of worker happiness, health, and output per hour worked. Denmark, Finland, the Netherlands, Germany, Norway. These are not countries where people work more. They are countries where workers take legally protected vacation, where the boundary between work hours and personal time is enforced by law and culture equally, where lunch is a meal, not a desk activity, where working late is not a signal of dedication. It is a signal that something is wrong. They didn't discover some secret. They didn't develop a superior workforce through discipline. They just didn't systematically destroy something that was already working.
The biology has not changed. What Wehr subjects experienced in that 1992 experiment, that quiet, prolactin-rich, meditative window in the middle of the night, is still available.
The human nervous system still carries the capacity for it. Researchers have shown that as little as 1 week of camping with zero artificial light is enough to shift the melatonin cycle back by nearly 2 hours. Sunset triggers drowsiness. Darkness deepens it. The two-phase pattern begins to reassert itself within days. 300,000 years of biological programming does not disappear. It just gets suppressed. By light, by schedules, by a culture that decided rest was something you had to earn. You were not built to be chronically exhausted. You were built with a recovery system sophisticated enough to generate its own neurochemical meditative state in the dark. A system that consolidates memory while you sleep, processes emotional experience, regulates hormones, repairs tissue, and prepares the prefrontal cortex to make good decisions the next day. That system still exists in you, right now, running quietly underneath all of it. The next time you're lying awake at 2 a.m., mind cycling, body exhausted, unable to fall back asleep, don't reach for the phone. Don't calculate how many hours you have left. Don't start composing the email you need to send in the morning. Consider, just for a moment, that your body might not be malfunctioning. That the exhaustion you carry might not be evidence of personal failure. That the system isn't broken. That it was broken for you. Deliberately, gradually, by forces that had nothing to do with your biology and everything to do with someone else's productivity calculation. You didn't fail to adapt. You were handed conditions that no human body was ever designed to adapt to. And somewhere underneath the alarm and the coffee and the guilt and the grind, there is still a version of you that knows exactly what the dark is for. You just haven't been given enough of it.